Alright, welcome back to 36 people. It's your boy Killer Cam. We got Ace in the place. How you doing, brother?
Hey man, I'm doing alright. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Hey, we got Heated to complete it. How you doing, OG?
I'm doing alright, man.
Alright. To start out, first thing on the docket here. Ace, you've been looking into the Google versus US trial that started a little while ago, right?
Yeah, so let's just start it out with a question. How many of you, when you go to search something on the internet, what do you think of searching? Or what service do you use? Do you use Bing? Do you use DuckDuckGo? No. You're going to use Google, right?
Yeah, it's built into most technology.
Yeah, exactly. So the U.S. is suing Google with allegations that Google's intentionally stifling competition with its massive search engine, basically saying that they have an illegal monopoly. Okay, similar to the Microsoft case back in the 90s, they're structuring it pretty similarly. Basically saying that it's infecting every computer and mobile device that is out on the market today. And Google pays billions to Apple and other Android providers to ensure that that either they're the only search engine or the default search engine on the device. And the U.S. is basically saying that Google's has negotiated exclusive contracts in violation of antitrust law. Now, on the flip side, Google is arguing that Apple, they had that Apple Safari, but they determined that Google Chrome was just a better service, and that's why they decided to make Google the default search engine, which demonstrates that their service is just superior, and that's why they have this huge cap on the market. And this isn't the first time that Google has been challenged in terms of its power within the market. They expect this case to last about 3 months. But my question to you all is, would you argue that Google is a monopoly? And then what do you think the results are going to be from this case, just knowing the bare bones basics?
I think that Google's going to hold on to what they have. Let's be honest. The only downside there is to Google, is that they're hawking your data to whatever corporation has their grubby mitts out to grab it. Because Bing, it sucks. Who wants to use Bing? Firefox, I think, is for people who are like making up their computer into whatever. I think for like PC users, people who are building their own computer and things like that. Firefox and Bing and other things like that are what they're going to go for. But Internet Explorer sucks. Google has the best service that's out there right now, and they have a lot of things that are tied in with it. It's just some people that get up and turn on YouTube every day. You know who owns YouTube? Google.
That was the best investment that I've ever seen. Once Google bought YouTube, I was like, oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I was good to go then.
It's high speed. You got Chrome. You can tie in all of your accounts with it. I don't think it's that they're like holding a monopoly. I think it's like everybody else can't keep up with them. It's not like Amazon, who's like going and buying smaller companies and things like that, or like starting their own thing to push you out of the market and selling it cheaper. But Amazon is basically like doing high-end drop shipping for a while, weren't they? And that's when they got their case brought up. But I think when it comes down to Google, Google for a lot of people, for like kids who grew up, is the internet. That's where it's at. It's safe. It'll keep your stuff on there. And plus, they're working with Microsoft. Microsoft is safe. You got Windows Defender and things like that. I think it's in this case, I think Google's going to win this one. It's not like Amazon, and I think it's really just like other companies crying about their boo-boos,
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Do you know anybody else that use anything else?
I just in my experience, when I was a kid, we did I think it was in middle school. We did a project where we had to use like 8 different search engines that weren't Google, and just to expose you to the different stuff. But back then, Google was destroying the competition. That's not to say that these DuckDuckGo and your Yahoo search and all that isn't bad, but I think Google has just built up this. It's almost like Kleenex. When you blow your nose, what do you use? You use Kleenex, regardless of whether it's name brand, off brand, whatever. It's called Kleenex. I think Google is so synonymous with being a search engine that, I mean, it really doesn't matter, you know, like technically you're using Bing, but most of the time your automatic thought is, oh, let me go ahead and download Google Chrome.
You only use it to get Google.
I would say most people that's literally the use for Edge, is to download Google Chrome.
You know, they whine and cry when you try to download it on there. Like, hey, we have the same things as Google, please. I'm not going to use that.
I'm not trying to hear that.
Cam saw me using Yahoo. He was like, man, what is this, man?
I'm using Yahoo. I'm not supposed to use AOL.
AOL still got a website. It looks weird. It's clean, but it's weird. I mean, it's like it's trying. Yeah, it's like it's trying to come back into the limelight, but it's not going to happen. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Google has set it up to where that, in my opinion at least, they've set it up to be a legal monopoly. Like, that people are going to go to Google. That's just what's going to happen. I mean, people are going to try to take them down every so often, but the fact of the matter is, I think Google is going to win this out. I mean, I think they may come out of it with, oh, you have to do a restructuring where they do something similar to like in grocery stores, how it seems like there's a billion options, but in reality there's only 4. I think it's going to end up something like that, where you have to technically split up, but you can still be under the same parent company alphabet, you know.
Yeah, regardless of like however the case goes, I'm not going to stop using Google. I'm not going to switch to Yahoo or Bing or Microsoft Edge or Firefox or MSN or AOL or whatever else garbage is out there, so I can get less quality there. And I will admit, you know, I won't say that Google isn't wetting its beak a little bit with the advertising, you know, maybe putting some stuff closer to the top. You can see it, you know, some garbage you didn't search for is the first thing that shows up, and you got to scroll down till you actually find the thing. Mm-hmm. But how hard is it to scroll down, right?
I mean, that's true. I mean, they literally, corporations can buy advertising space. Like, they say if you're not on the first search page of something, I think 93% of people won't even click past the first page. So I mean, and they built that up to be a fantastic market. I mean, that's just excellent business sense, in my opinion.
The way I see it, is it even really worth it? I mean, everything past the first page of Google is the Wild West. You know, who knows what you're getting over there? It's just malware, Trojan horse. It's just horse.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know, I think I might be on the side, and I hate to say it, on the side of a corporation here, but I might be on the side of Google. You know, I used Google my whole life. And I was around for other internets. You know, I used Internet Explorer for a while. It's just they have a superior product.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be frank and honest. I have a Google phone. I have Google Assistant at home. Got about 2 of them. I got a Google thermometer. I mean, I have accepted the fact that Google is a part of my life now. Like, that's just gonna be what it is. I've accepted that, and I'm okay with that. You know, because it's just fantastic service. You know what I mean? It just is what it is.
If they respected the privacy of their users, you know, if they didn't sell data, if people didn't think that they were listening through their Google Home and all that, then Google would largely just be the internet for I think the world at large, for the United States and the world at large. You know, I think Google would just be the internet. If I didn't have to worry about if I didn't have to like use a VPN for anything that I wanted to do or anything I was thinking about, then I wouldn't be thinking about anything else. You know, it's like Internet Explorer is built into this, and Google takes a lot of space on the computer when you download it. Mm-hmm. But there's like that's a really good trade-off. You know, I'm completely all right with that if it means that I get to get that fast results as soon as I want it, my accounts and the syncing that comes up with it, the cookies that remember my thing, so I can type in 3 letters and an entire document that I wrote out shows up.
Heater man, what's your thoughts on this?
I think that because they made a superior product and people are into it, I mean, I don't see the problem with that. Isn't that capitalism?
I mean, yeah, at its finest.
Mm-hmm. So,
all right, well, that's sorted then.
All right. Well, you know, who else we had on the docket? And names that we don't often like to talk about. Men and women who, you know, I really don't like giving attention to, but they must be discussed. You were looking into Sowell and other sellouts like him, weren't you?
Yeah. What I wound up doing was looking at Thomas Sowell and Larry Elder, and people, Candace Owens,
David Webb.
So we're talking about black Republicans at this point?
Oh, yeah, black Republicans.
Okay.
Conservative-minded African American. And I was looking at it, and I asked myself, are they really sellouts, or do they really believe in what it is that they're espousing? You know what I'm saying? The things that they are spreading.
I think they believe in that garbage just as much as Ramaswamy believes the garbage he's saying, right? These are black people. They know. Candace Owens sued her own high school for discrimination. She's talking about she got an eating disorder from out of it. I think these are hucksters. I think these are charlatans, people who will do whatever for money, These are people who are happy getting some scraps off the master's table and telling on the people in the field.
I mean, so playing devil's advocate just for a second, do you think that they've cultivated the thought process because they've tried to play a part in another party, specifically the Democratic Party, that's done nothing for them?
No, I think I can agree that the black community has in large part been used and ran through by the Democratic Party. They don't do anything. They really hate their constituents. These are the same. These are like all the same assholes who go to Harvard and Yale, and some just throw on some cowboy boots and start yeehawing, and other ones go to upstate New York, right? And that's not to say people like AOC or John Fetterman, people who are actually trying to put things in aren't doing the job. But for the most part, most of those guys aren't doing anything, right? That's why people don't have any faith in the Democratic Party. There's no real measure of pushback. That's why the conservatives can say and do whatever, and you have to deal with that. And their main thing that they're running on is those 4 years were hard, weren't they? It was brutal, huh? Well, vote for me, or you're gonna have to do it again. And I'm not giving you anything for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't think it's like I can agree that the Democratic Party is they're not really doing anything for blacks as it is, but I think these guys have realized, I can make money doing this, and it doesn't matter what else I do. That's why Dennis Prager has black people coming on there talking about slavery wasn't as bad as it really was. That's why Candace is content with going on there to I don't know if it's Turning Point USA or whatever Ben Shapiro's show is with his weird
or
friends.
Fox News or whatever.
Go wherever she needs to go. People like David Webb going to Parliament talking about the United States as an institutionally racist. Thomas Sowell writing a whole book about perverse incentives and why it's bad for black people to get things, but it's okay for the for white people. Non-Hispanic whites, the overwhelming majority of people who are actually using social welfare. It's okay for them. It's These are bullshit artists. These are subhumans. People who don't even value their own identity and lives, let alone those of people who they're not around. They're not in the communities of the people that they're talking about.
You don't think Thomas Sowell? You don't think he's genuine in what he says? He's been doing it since the 60s.
I think Thomas Sowell was like Jesse Lee Peterson. I think he thinks.
I see a major difference between them.
Like Jesse is a dog, right? We can admit that he's worthless, but Thomas, he's a trained dog, right? He can write it out and articulate it a little better.
Well, he began as a Marxist, and then he started working for the government, and then he became
he got that good government money.
Yeah, and for affirmative action, he benefited from it.
Did he really? I hate that.
He admitted it.
Black people who just no. Look. I went to school, and there was no affirmative action, and I got in. You know how I got in? Because I was better than a lot of other kids. Ace, you went to school without affirmative action, and you got in. You got in because you were better than people. You got in with the summa cum laude. You graduated summa cum laude, or the highest graduation you could have gotten. You have a degree. All right, I didn't get a degree because the benefit of white hands helping me. And I hate that they blame black people the most for affirmative action. Affirmative action was just colleges wanting their schools to be reflective of the country that we live in. They want it to be diverse. It's not me with bad test scores stealing the spot from some hard-working Asian kid. It's some white girl who works at the gas station who got in there. It's more rather that she took the spot, or a Spanish kid who was involved in his community, and he took the spot. All right, you can't just do schoolwork and think that's all it takes to get into school. All right, you got to write out a letter begging this place to be indebted to them for the rest of your life. People don't really understand it, but you got to get kiss ass to get into school. It's not about what you know; it's about who you know and how you get in there.
Yeah, I mean that definitely is accurate statement. You do have to, present yourself in the best light. But I mean, that's just any major life decision. That's getting a job. That's going to school. I mean, that's finding a partner. I mean, you have to, the presenting yourself in a certain way. That's just a baked in part of everyday life, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I think as far as it is with them, it's not like I'm not using up welfare. You know, I'm not on social welfare, and I'm not just a burden on the country.
Right.
We can look at the statistics. The overwhelming majority of social welfare recipients are white. Those are who are using it, right? And the parties that they're voting for, like the Conservative Party, they want to get rid of that kind of stuff. They want to take it away, and they keep pinning it on us. They want to get rid of affirmative action, and they pin it on us. It's black people's fault. The people are getting in and doing this and that. That's not what it is. All right, it's a whole slew of different people who are getting in and going to college, like I said earlier, so we can be reflective of the environment that these people are going to go back into. You think that all those kids at Harvard and Yale are as smart as they let on? They all have these really great grades. I mean, I think personally the reason they do it is so that when these CEOs and executives kids go to these schools, they have some people around them, so that when they do go out into the real world, they're not saying outlandish offhand things when they see a black person. You know, it's to train them, to get them ready for the world that they're about to come into and inherit. You know, it's not they're going to some underfunded school. They are going to underfunded school, and they're finding the kid with good grades. You know, they're finding the kid who has the federal aid to help pay for them to get in there and get out, you know, because if they get one semester in, that's still the money, you know. They don't really care. All it is, it's them, like it's them filling it out as it was meant to be. It's not it's not. I don't think it's all on us like they like to put it there, and they'll get talking heads like Sowell, like Owens, like Webb, to say that it is, you know, people who are very willing to blame themselves and others for the misdoings or the falsehoods or the shortcomings of others, you know. And that's not to say that some things aren't band-aid solutions.
When I was watching it, some of the things they were talking about, you know, I kind of understand the point and why they were saying it, but the thing that bothered me mostly about it is how white supremacy use their words. You know what I'm saying?
Because they are white supremacists. If a white man was saying the things that they were saying, you would say, "Oh, that's a white supremacist."
He's a libertarian. You know what I'm saying? With conservative sensibilities.
Yeah, and Joe Manchin is a Democrat. I mean, come on.
I mean, they play those type of games.
So I'm saying it's all a ploy. It's all to make it look like it's a certain way. That's why Candace Owens will get all up in arms and start her bodies in places. How are you going to tell me as a black person when I can say BS? You know, because it's usually white people who are pushing back on it. You know, it's not racist for me to call you a racist for being racist. If a white man was saying what you were saying and I called him racist, people would nod their head and say, "Yeah, that guy is kind of racist. That guy." You know, it's a convenient solution for this. It's a convenient cover or shield they can throw up whenever you say what you're doing right now is white supremacist. David Webb himself was mistaken by a CNN reporter for a white man because of the way that he was conducting himself, and they celebrated so much when they found out that he was black, and they're like, "Oh, you've misraced me," with his weird sandpaper pack of cigarettes voice, that milk dud headed freak. I mean, these are, in my opinion, some of the lowest of the low. You know, these are subhumans. These are people who, like, because Larry Elder himself, won't he like run back to the left or to like liberals when white supremacists come at him a little too hard, and he's asking like, well, how come these people won't help me? Or he'll run to the news and say, "Oh, well, black people are the meanest to me because they call me all kinds of coons, this, the N-words, that." Of course, I don't think any black man should be called that, especially not by his own people. But if you're cooning it up, people are going to call it like it is.
Yeah.
And that's not an excuse for you to go back into it and say, "Oh, you see how it is? Well, that's why I do it. You see, look at them being mean to them." You know, like I said, they're scraping the chicken scraps off the table, you know, and then running back to master and say, "Hey, look what they're doing out there. They're acting up."
Well, speaking of that, I mean, I don't think this is the first iteration of black people having these ideals and doing this. Obviously, we have the example of slave time with a person who was friends with a slave master, but you look at the 60s and 70s with Farrakhan. I mean, I see him as a perfect example of following this trend of getting some money and for selling out his own people.
I heard about that. What did he do?
Farrakhan?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Farrakhan was this guy. He always did speeches to the black community about how we needed to change. And
He's a Million Man March guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but he was this guy who always went around and talked to black people and explained how our actions are causing our injustice and causing these situations, basically putting the blame back on.
He's one of those bootstrap policy kind guys.
Or was he hollering for personal responsibility? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It says black mothers aren't trying to get their kids through school. I hate the bootstrap blacks. You know, the people who want you to pull yourself up. You know, Booker T. Washington, the man who coined that phrase himself, disavowed it later in his life. It was like taken by the conservative party and is used whenever they can to throw up into the faces of minorities. I think because it has its roots in black people, we're so willing to come back to it, fall back on it. But that is like it's disingenuous. What bootstraps are you supposed to pull up? What the underfunded communities, the paper mill that I'm growing up the street from, you know, the polluted water that I'm drinking out of, the leaded gas in the air, the schools that have a police officer that more often than not put you on the ground than he will stop something from coming in.
Now, isn't it it's funny how black conservatives and all that, they want government out of your lives, you know, and take away regulation and all that stuff.
So the EPA can put up more factories around your house. Or no, they want the EPA defunded so they can put up more polluted factories around your house and poison you.
Like,
call them sacrifice zones because they're willing to sacrifice black lives in order to increase profits or whatever it is. They would do the same thing to immigrants. You know, these guys come over the border, they come up here, they work in these places, they don't give them their money, be it a back of a kitchen, you know, on a farm, or as I call it, a plantation, as it is. You know, you get your arm ripped off on a combine or something like that, and they either send you back or you complain about being assaulted by your manager who's groping you at the meat packing plant. They call ICE on you, you go to jail, and now you're doing slave labor. You're doing you're working for no money now.
See, the difference between Thomas Sowell and Farrakhan is for his people. He's all about separation. You know what I'm saying? He's
a black nationalist?
Yeah, he's about separation. He's about doing for self, opening up your own businesses, and he's basically a conservative type thinker. You know what I'm saying? Do for yourself. You know, don't rely on the government and all these other people, you know, to control your life.
I know you can't. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't listening.
I know you can't trust the government to help you. You know, you can't rely on them to help you at all. That's why so many black people didn't want to get the COVID vaccine, because, you know, black people were the subject of human experimentation for so long. So many people can't trust the government because the government has made it very clear that they don't care about minorities. I mean, look at the model minority little thing that they like to throw up with the Asians and things like that. Back in World War II, they had those guys in concentration camps.
Oh yeah, all it takes is one serious event for America to toss them to the side. I mean, it at the end of the day, exactly. At the end of the day, being a quote unquote model minority means nothing. They will still hold you to the fire. I mean,
you say hold you to the fire. What do you mean by that? I mean, because I'm trying to figure out.
They used them to try to get rid of affirmative action.
Well, you know what? Yeah, they used a lot of the arguments and propped them up, you know, as voices out there, you know, to talk about their agenda and stuff like that. But, you know, most African American people, we live in the gray area, man. You know what I'm saying? We live between the lines. Yeah, there are some people who benefit from affirmative action, and then there are other minorities or other blacks who went to the same colleges who has massive debt. You know what I'm saying? Because what is the real deal? The real deal is that these colleges and universities are a business.
Yeah.
They say, well, we're not going to accept you, to get these scholarships or whatever. But if you take out $100,000 in loan, you can still come. But you're going to be on probation until you flunk out, and then we can keep your money. You know what I'm saying? It's all a game.
And then if you magically somehow manage to graduate, they have the nerve to call you every month. Oh, we need some donation. I ain't donating.
They
nothing.
ask for some money. I just got out of that joint, and they're asking me for money.
Man, I tell you,
that's the game. That's just how it is.
Yeah. I mean, they got to do what they got to do to get their bag. But I mean,
increase tuition every year so that it makes it harder and harder for people of lower socioeconomic stances to get into the school as it is. But these people with legacy admissions get to get in. People like President Trump gut the estate tax to make it even easier for them to get in. Remember that little tax break that he gave us back in I don't know whenever he did. He gave us a little tax break, and it was like $25 off of your check or whatever it was. Meanwhile, everybody else, the wealthy, his friends and their kids, they're getting who knows however much off. And plus, theirs was permanent. Ours is going to run out. I think it ran out. It's not permanent.
One of the things that Thomas espoused, what he was talking about mostly, is getting your kids out of the failing school systems.
And sending them where? You're going to send them to, like how I did? I got to drive 15 minutes on the highway to go to a school and get culture shocked?
Yeah, but it was a necessity, wasn't it?
The only solution is, I think it's like you've told me before, Heat, is you got to, all you can do is try to survive, There's plenty of us who are trying to do that.
Look for opportunities, because if you don't, what's going to happen? You're going to fall to the wayside.
It's so hard, you got to stay on your P's and Q's, because you look at all the people we named: Webb, Owens, Sowell, Elder. You got those people working against you. You got whites working against you. You got white liberals who are, in my opinion, just polite conservatives working against you.
Here's my point. You listen to Saul and Candace Owens and all these different people that spew the stuff that they spew. The one thing that was most offensive to me is when they try to say, when they try to justify slavery and all the white man didn't invent slavery and all this stuff. They went through this whole presentation and all that.
Aren't white.
That is the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard in my life. And for a black woman, that is the most embarrassing thing in the world. But that's clown shit. How many of us really, the only people that's really paying attention to that type of shit is those white supremacists who want to.
They're saying what they can't say. They're saying it for them, even though they want to say it, but they got somebody who can do it for them now.
But I mean, at the same time, they getting paid to do it. So all I see it is a lot of these black conservatives have essentially seen, oh, okay, so I can make $200,000 if I just say any old kind of bullshit. Okay, cool.
For them, they'll say, I would rather the conservatives spit in my face than the liberals spit on my back. And I think that's their justification.
Agree with that. I 100 times out of 100 would rather deal with a racist who's visibly racist. Don't talk to me. Cool. I ain't got to deal with you. Then that liberal who's like, oh well, no, we can't give you this job. No, we can't have that.
Henry, did you steal my bicycle? Well, I have a Ring camera.
So what? So if they are out, they are out there talking that crazy shit. You know what I'm saying? And the people who are listening to them are the people that's against black people anyway. So,
or broken-minded blacks,
Right. Those are the ones that I really like. This one guy I watch all the time where he's constantly showing Donald Trump in his speeches and pointing at him. Like, oh, hear what he just said, something clever. I'm like, this dude must be on some type of drugs, man. Or something.
Or he's getting paid to do it, know.
This is a performance. I mean, I can't, in good conscience, believe that these people are actually believing this garbage that they see. You look at Fox News when Donald Trump was president. Half of them correspondents on there didn't believe none of that, and that was proven by the text. They're getting their bag. That's all. That's all it is. It reminds me of this Black Mirror episode called 15 Million Merits. Essentially, long story short, not to spoil it or anything, but it talks about how all that matters is you getting that money. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter what you say, what you do. Guy goes on stage and is about to kill himself because he he feels like he has nothing to live for, and what results from it, he becomes this meme, essentially. He becomes another TV show, and now he's in a better situation, and now it's like this characterization of like, it's just completely delegitimized. I mean, that's just the way capitalist society is set up. Every single thing is monetarily beneficial. Every single thing can be made money off of, and
commoditized.
Yeah, everything can be monetized. YouTube is a perfect example of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can sit and watch somebody play a video game for 8 hours easily on Twitch or on YouTube. You can see somebody talk about politics for 8 hours on YouTube. I mean, at the end of the day, with the society set up in a capitalistic mindset, everything and anything and everything can be used towards financial gain. That's all that matters.
Yeah, nothing's sacred because everything is for sale. You know, worse than that. Look at what's that one rapper's name? I think it's like Blueface in China. It's you guys wouldn't really like know about this part of YouTube, but it's just this couple having it out. You know, getting into it, basically. Recorded DV, you know, for people to look at and judge and laugh at. You know, it's messy and it's sad, but it makes money. Is the thing. It gets views.
And again, it doesn't matter whether you're making food videos, making TikToks. If it makes money, if it sells, then that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're showing your body. Well, hey, it makes money. You know, I mean,
they were some damn fools, man. I watched a couple of those. I was like, man, what the hell? It's crazy. But you know that goes to show you what our society is going towards. You know, all the debauchery and shit. And
like the United States, human life in the United States is only worth the data you produce and the things that you buy. You know.
I mean that's. I feel like that's a result of the capitalistic society. That's what Monopoly was trying to teach us in the 1920s and 30s. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, socialism and all these other things are better. I'm just saying that looking at capitalism, looking at the way our society's been set up, I don't know if this is the best way to live in a country.
You like the economic structure of society? What do you think of, like maybe democratic socialism? Maybe
that seems like the best way to me. I mean, you still have to incentivize people to work, because if you don't incentivize people to work, then you have a collapse of society, right?
Well, you have to have protections out there too. Make sure that
socialized healthcare. You know, like, I think there's protections, but you're talking socialized healthcare. You know, you're talking perhaps a reformed police force. You're talking a lot of benefits, and I think people's issue is they're saying, well, I don't want to pay for somebody else's thing. And that's what I believe the conservative argument for it is. They don't want to pay somebody to lay around and get fat on welfare, as if you can actually do that. Like, you're not working 2 jobs while you're on welfare as it is. It's, even though that's exactly how insurance is set up. It's you pay into a pool and then take from it when you need it, and then you pay back I believe the interest or the rate on it from what you've taken. You're already doing that with the insurance companies you work with, and that's if you have insurance. It's just people don't want to like look into the finer details of things. We're content with being told what we're meant to be told by Hannity or Carlson or whoever the loser that took Carlson's spot. You know,
people. They allow their buttons to get pushed, man. You know, they're mad about certain things that's going on. Hey, you're not getting ahead. Some black person took your job, you know, and it's like, how often is that happening when we are at what? The lower half of, the percentile?
13% of the population. There's no black people in the community where you're at, buddy. They just closed up the coal mines because you and your grandfather got black lung being in there, you know, or maybe the plant cut back and they got one guy doing your job and your buddy's job as well, so they could
say they live in West Virginia in the boondocks, and they say, man, your jobs are gone because of African Americans.
Have you guys seen recently that they caught the escaped convict in Pennsylvania, Danilo Cavacalo, I believe his name was?
Yeah, I heard about that. Wasn't he gone for about like 2 weeks or something like
The
that?
man was gone for 14 days after busting out of a federal penitentiary, and this is a murderer we're talking about. A dangerous man who ran across rooftops like he was Jason Statham, right? Like we're watching an action movie, and he managed to evade the Pennsylvania police force. I believe the U.S. Marshals, all kinds of dudes, for a full 2 weeks. Now look. I'm sure there are podcasts that are directly dedicated to ragging on the police. You know, there's songs for it. There's plenty of people or plenty of content out there for ragging on the police. But if I'm being completely honest with you here, all I've seen is people glazing these guys up for doing a job that they were meant to do, or fixing a mistake that they had made, more rather, right? You know, Ace. How often, when you're doing your job, not saying that you do this often, but if you make a mistake at work, how often does your boss pat you on the back for fixing it, right? And congratulate you, give you a press conference, you know, maybe even give you a pay raise.
I mean, yeah, it's unheard of.
It's one of the only jobs in the United States where failure is rewarded every year with an increase in budgets, right? These guys screwed up. These were armed men. They had thermal technology, all right? These guys was getting caught on trail cams and people's ring cameras more often than they could with these $1,000 thermal cameras and helicopters they were using, right? When they caught this guy, he was wearing he was sweaty, he was wearing an Eagles vest. They caught him in the woods, and they had all these like guys decked out in military equipment, armed to the teeth, all this and that, all to catch one guy who had a 22. I mean, I often hear liberals use the term ACAB, you know, which means all cops are bad. White liberals, more rather, you know. You're not really going to find it on Black Twitter or other circles like that, you know. You find them saying F the police more often than not. But I think that term is used not because it's like, oh, everybody on the force is a bad person, right? But some of us know some people on the force, you know. Some of our family members are on the force, black people. I think it's like the very systems under which these people operate cause them to carry out bad acts, and it causes them to not do the job up to the snuff or the quality that it should be done, especially given the funding that they're receiving and the grisly nature of the work that they have to carry out, right?
I mean, I definitely agree that there are problems with the system. That's for sure. I mean, you have cops doing stuff that they weren't necessarily trained to do, especially with like a mental health situation. Them trying to handle these mental health patients when half the time they're not even trained to deal with these kinds of people, or not nearly sufficient enough to handle them with the care in which they need, right? So I mean, I definitely think there needs to be a restructuring of who handle these types of situations, whether it be you send out the DHS caseworker or social worker rather, to go for these emergency situations to ensure that, you know, the proper care is taken with the police officer, or you know, just changing things around so that, you know, these police officers have more time to build relationships with the community, build olive branches to allow them the opportunity to, you know, just serve the community the way they need to be served.
You know what I think?
Let me ask you a question. Would you give them any type of latitude, man, with the understanding that wasn't it the U.S. Marshals who was on the manhunt?
Yeah, that's a federal force. The marshals were involved in it as well.
Yeah, as opposed to the actual guards and the prison system that allowed him to escape.
They're a part of the police. They were a part of the force. Is what they're all part of. I forgot what the department is, but they're all a part of the same place. They're part of the same unions. When one union is getting some money on that, they're all union brothers. They're carrying the gun and the badge. Granted, one has more power than the other, but they go through the same training forces. Like, my thing is when I look at how powerful police unions are, when I look at the funding that they receive, I look at the California Police Force, you know, the LAPD, and the money that they're getting, right? They're sometimes getting more money than some militaries across the planet, right? When I look at that, when I look at the backlog of unsolved rape kits, and I look at all the unsolved murders in the United States, you know, and I look at the salary that these guys are receiving, I'm thinking, this needs to be redone from the bottom up. And I'm not saying throw everybody out, throw the baby out with the bathwater and all that. I'm saying we got to make it harder to be a police officer. We got to make it so that the police officer is a social worker, so he knows what he's doing in there. We got to train them in de-escalation, right? A lot of people have made this argument, and a lot of people will get upset with me probably because ACAB, they don't really want to mess with the police. But I think there is a need. You got to have like some means of combating the crime that's happening, and my solution for that isn't just like pour funds into like making up a new police force. It's to fund the communities that are like that are in need of it. If you have like a redlined community that's a food desert that has one school that's failing and a bunch of teachers that come from out of town who don't actually care about it, then you're not gonna like. And also you got a factory, a plant, that's pumping stuff into the water, into the air. There's very little opportunity. There's little opportunity even for food. If your most nutritious meal for your child is coming from that brick that they're getting in the morning time at school, you're gonna have crime. They've known since back in the Grecian times that poverty and crime are directly correlated with each other. People aren't just committing crimes just because they want to do it, unless they're a psychopath or something like that. It's desperation. It's a need.
Yeah, I mean, there absolutely is a correlation. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, you look at it, the majority of crimes, as you stated, are crimes of necessity. Whether it be needing money to get your kid some clothes or needing to do what you got to do. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, people are going to take care of their families, right? I mean, however they have to do that, whether they have to sell drugs, or they have to do this, or do that, they're going to take care of that family. And we definitely need I definitely agree that we need a restructuring. But, Heater, why don't you provide your perspective on this?
I think that there has to be some form of law enforcement in the communities, because there are crimes happening all the time. I think the best way for to keep the public safe and police officers is for them to to collaborate together. I'm saying, have a relationship where they're saying, okay, these are the what do they call it, neighborhood watch and stuff like that. And get away from that whole don't snitch thing, because back in the day there used to be codes, and those codes involved that bad element that's out there doing negative things knew not to mess with the public, which they called the civilians. You know what I'm saying? And that was part of the code that happened. If that bad element bled into the innocent civilians, then it was okay to say, hey, you know what, this happened and that happened. Matter of fact, the bad element would turn the guy, whoever did it, in. You know what I'm saying? Make them turn themselves in or do street justice. But
that makes me worry. I hate to cut you off, but do you remember when Clinton, when he got in, he had Biden alongside him, and he basically used black people wanting the crime to go down where they were at in their underfunded communities as a means for justifying the crime bill and the damage that did to our communities? I think you can't really work with the government per se, because they clearly can't be trusted. They're very willing to use black people to their own ends. I mean, the United States has the largest population of imprisoned people, and the overwhelming majority of them are black. I think you have to treat the issue, or treat the community and the police that are coming in like an organism, like a living organism, right? The police should be the white blood cells that come in and they find the virus or whatever it is. They get rid of that and they help heal, they patch things up, they fix things that are there. And we try to look at the community as it moves as a conducive, moving and living organism. You got to work with I agree, there's got to be community outreach. There's got to be people that work with them in there. And I think a way by doing that, I think this is something you've told me before, Heat, is having people who live in that community go into that community and become part of it. I think get a reform, change the uniform. That's why I say change it from the bottom up, because the uniform itself is rooted so deeply in a history of fear, violence, and pain. It strikes fear.
It comes with a stigma.
It's a symbol of oppression, is what it is. If you have like, you know how they had the Civilian Conservation Corps back after the 20s, and they had all these guys who came. If you had like some guys within the communities, some people holding degrees, or some people who can go get a certification and the proper things that they need, who can be trained in how to do this task, trained in de-escalation, right? Trained in how to communicate with people. You know, you'd have better results, and that doesn't mean, like I said earlier, like put everything in with the police. Because people are so gung-ho for like funding the police, giving them this and that. That's why they have all this military grade equipment that they don't need, right?
Those are people who are outside of those communities who want to see those black communities as threats from afar.
Yeah, they see it as like a colony from nearby that they can either take from. They can slam down a payday loan place or a Walmart or something like that, and then get mad when it gets burned down in an uprising. You know,
not to cut you off, but let me make it perfectly clear, because you brought up the crime bill and all that stuff. Well, you have to understand this with the 3-strike law, the Rockefeller 3-strike law, and all those different things. They put those things in place, and then they put in those situations where it's unfair biases.
Are you getting picked up?
I don't think.
You don't hear me?
I don't think you're getting picked up.
Well, I definitely hear myself. Yeah.
Alright.
It sounded good. Yeah.
Okay, now you're good. Go ahead.
All right. You know what I'm saying? It became, those 3-strike laws and stuff like that, and then all the biases that started coming into place.
Mandatory sentencing.
Exactly. What is it? They call them. You got politicians on stage talking about predators. You know what I'm saying?
Super predators
and all that stuff. You got all these black men going into prisons with non-violent offenses and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. For sentences that are much longer than the white
need to be.
And the thing, right? They were biased sentences that they were putting together. They was putting people in, and then these politicians had the nerve to blame it on the black people who said we want more policing in our streets because of the crime and stuff that's happening.
Because
that's passing the buck, isn't that? Say, hey, you know what? You guys asked for us to put you in jail and kill you. So, I mean, how silly does that sound?
It doesn't really make any sense. The thing is that hadn't crime been going down since the Reagan era when they were putting that stuff in as it was? It's like crime was going down, and I think they blamed it on leaded gas because it had like it affected a generation's ability to reason or have emotional control and regulation. I don't think they make it. They try to say that it's culture, that some demographics of people are just more inherently violent than others, as if there's no violence in white culture and things like that. I mean, I think I've said this before, but the overwhelming majority of mass shooters are white. We don't blame whites directly for it. We say that like it's mental health, but the only time we bring it up as mental health is when we're talking about gun reform, when we want to get rid of it. It's the same way as we only bring up veterans and people who are in need of social welfare when we're trying to give something to immigrants. I think we're too quick to like either pass it away, find some way to offshoot it, or just find some way to just put a boot on the neck of minorities, or marginalized people, rather than look at an actual solution. That's why we have so many band-aid solutions. That's why I mean, affirmative action kind of a band-aid solution. That's not real reparations. No,
I mean, and it's at the end of the day. In my opinion, at least, the whole of the United States policy government needs to be reformed such that everybody has a fair and equal and opportune chance. That's just, I mean, from the policing, from government policy, all of it needs to be at least looked at, if not completely redone. I mean, because the way the way the system is set up, it's systemically disenfranchised for people of color. I mean, especially black people. I mean, the people who wrote these bills and stuff back in the 1700s and this and that, they had no interest in having black people have rights.
Yeah, the police have their origins in slave catchers and Pinkertons, bands of thugs that were hired by the wealthy to protect their goods, and eventually, once those goods were deemed needed or they uphold a lot of the economy of the people that were there through the monopolies that they were holding, people ended up having to pay through their taxes to fund these bands of thugs, and people didn't like these guys back then, I think you know, it's reflected in like their inability to carry out the work. You know, you look at Uvalde, you look at these heavily armed men standing outside while a teenager is in there laying down children, right? You look at Pennsylvania, and they got to call in God knows how many forces. God knows how many forces to try to take care of them, you know, and it's a Brazilian man running around through the Pennsylvania woods, and these were native sons, these were Pennsylvania's boys, right? And they couldn't find a man who's not even from the United States running around in woods that they go hunting in with their buddies.
Well, maybe it wasn't a high priority.
Oh yeah, because they could get more news coverage off of it, and of course, I'm sure they can like justify boosting their budgets off of this. You know, some people are gonna get some extra salary, a little fatter salary off of it. You know, people are gonna get a medal. I mean, look at the past press conferences they're cutting. CNN bringing on experts and all this and that to say, oh, what's happening now? Like people hold the police in such a regard, but they don't acknowledge that they don't have all the capabilities to do the jobs that we put them up for. You know, they have to have the training to be able to do certain things. And the one time we see them needing to do the things, being the hammer that we need them to be, you know, they're not going in and getting the shooter. You know, they're not finding this man, this foreign man in their own woods. Literally their neck of the woods, and this guy's gone for 2 weeks. Usually they catch them walking up the street within 24 hours. That's why they have signs on the highway that says don't pick up the hitchhikers because you're nearby to a penitentiary.
So they should have just kept the dogs on and ran them down like a dog, huh?
The one time we asked him to do this, because the only reason this guy didn't murder some more is because he didn't feel like it. He was breaking into people's houses in their sleep, stealing things. He managed to get a 22 out of somebody's garage. The one time we need them to be a hammer, they don't got the bloodhounds out. They got a bunch of guys with plate carriers and I don't know if they're automatic or what, and rifles and helmets and all this and that, thermal cameras looking for a guy, and they they can't get their hands on them. You know, it doesn't make sense to me that they can't. I mean, they're so good at doing people in. Excuse me, who don't need it. You know, but when it's time for them to like really do the job that we asked them to do, they're not there to fill it out. That's why I bring out the United States backlog of rape kits. You know, with the unsolved crimes. You know, people being murdered and nobody getting caught for it.
There's a whole Spotify podcast talking about all the unsolved murders. I mean, several YouTube channels to talk about all the unsolved murders.
You can start a career on it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, sad state of affairs.
I think we can all agree that it needs to be redone. But you know what, you guys? Enough about the grit and grime of the United States. We got to live here, you know? We shouldn't make everybody else have to wallow in it. You've been looking into a couple of things abroad, a little foreign, right? I hate to call them Axis powers, but Russia, China, and Korea, they've been having a little meeting, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. I know that China had a meeting with them months ago, with Russia months ago, but I know recently that North Korea, what's his name?
Kim Jong-un?
Yeah, he met with Putin for like 4 hours, I believe. And
yeah, and Biden was going to meet with Vietnam, weren't they? Because they've been working with China, haven't they?
You know what's crazy about that? But what's crazy about the whole thing is, I was trying to figure out why the hell did Russia invade Ukraine? Come to find out, wasn't they trying to join the UN?
They were trying to join.
Was it NATO or the UN?
So they were trying to join. Correction, it's NATO. They were trying to join NATO, right. But they weren't trying to join until until Russia invaded, if I remember correctly.
I know they were they making not threats, but were they saying hey yo, because I know. I forgot the name of the other country. They're trying to join NATO now, but
well, Sweden, because they joined. So they joined.
Right.
Yeah.
So my thing is, and I heard Cornel West say something about this. He said, "Well, how would the United States feel if Russia and the countries that they're friends and North Korea put missiles or join a group with Mexico and put missiles and stuff like that on the border of the United States.
Well, in my opinion, NATO is just American imperialism by another name. You know, you can't like have the British Empire anymore. You can't have the American Empire anymore. But you can call it NATO, right? And you can put your missiles here and there.
Because we funded all the damn money, huh?
A lot of it, yeah. What they give $800 million to Ukraine right now? I mean, as it was, and on top of that, like, is Israel a nuclear power?
Yeah. They got
France, England, I believe Australia bought a nuclear sub from the United States recently. $82 billion nuclear sub, you know. I think when you're boxing everybody in like this, you know, and framing them to be these really bad guys, even though you're telling them your flight pass when you're doing things with it and getting most of your oil from them, you know, then you don't really leave people a lot of choice, especially when you're locking them out of their world economy as it is. No wonder he's working with China. And I'm not saying that I'm pro-Russia or that I'm pro Xi Jinping either. I know people will love to jump on that shit.
You know, yeah, they can jump on it all. You know what's crazy? They playing the dangerous game with the nukes and all that shit. We can destroy this planet just by some crazy fool deciding that they just want to use a dirty bomb or a nuke or whatever.
You know, like a reactionary like DeSantis.
I would say, I mean, scientists have determined that it's more likely that we will kill ourselves versus something happening in space or an asteroid or something hitting us and killing us. It's more likely that we're going to kill ourselves based on the nukes and that kind of thing.
Just think about how crazy that is. The United States is sending billions of dollars over to Ukraine and armament and stuff like that to fight against the Russians. Mm-hmm. Just think of how crazy that shit is.
They don't care. They're getting paid. You know, they're putting the money in. Raytheon is getting. It's going back through companies like Raytheon, like I don't know if it's Blackwire, whatever it is, the mercenary groups or wherever it is that operates around there. I think it's going to be a lot like the collapse of the USSR. Right, all these guns are going to be in there, all these weapons, all these missiles, all things like that. Gangs are going to get their hands on it. They're going to get their hands on politicians, and it's going to be left up to the people.
When was the last time the country of Russia was invaded? What, World War II by the Germans?
Prigozhin.
You know what I'm saying? You think they're going to allow that shit to happen, man? If the Ukraine get an upper hand on them and cross their borders?
Well, the last real invasion they had was their own guy, Vasily Prigozhin. Remember, he walked back into the place, but he was a mercenary. But of course, I don't think they want American imperialist power to keep boxing them in, surrounding them, and keeping them from being able to do what they want to do, regulating them only to the oil. Because if you listen to Donald Trump recently, he wants to start drilling for oil and start fracking. He wants to get that crude up instead of keep going to Saudi Arabia, so that we don't have to rely on them at all. And once we don't need their oil anymore.
And hell, they bombing the hell out of what is that called? Yemen,
causing that drought there, killing those people.
I mean, it's terrible what they're doing to those people.
Yeah, American imperialism has shown itself to be very bad for the rest of the world. You know, and it's just we have the media across the planet because we have NATO. You know, we have the BBC, we got the Fox and CNN, and all these guys to frame it as if it's still Stalin or Tojo. You know, running these countries when it's really like people who are playing PlayStation the same as the people over here. You know, people who are going on TikTok and doing things like that. It's just, I think. I mean, you saw a little while ago when China had its protests. You know, against some of the stuff that were going on. They were flying American flags. I'm not saying these guys are our allies, but I think the way that we so quickly demonize them and take it with the xenophobia of the United States. You know, the fear and anger of immigrants, which I think goes a lot in hand with white supremacy, and then. You know, like people like Carlson going on Fox and saying the 14 words, talking about white replacement and all that crap. I think that like is so baked into the society that you see it reflected in our foreign policy. You know, I mean, what do you guys think?
I mean, I'm be honest with you in regards to Russia working with China and North Korea. It just makes sense. I mean, Russia's got it. They're not just going to sit down and die. You know, they got to do something. Exactly. They got to do something with somebody. I mean, even China now is starting to waffle on the negotiations. The only reason they were being all buddy with them is to get a upper hand on them with economics and that kind of thing. Because that's what China's angle is. It seems to try to get into people's pockets, and that's how they're gonna eventually try to subvert subvert the U.S. in terms of being the big economic exporter, right? So I mean, of course, China's gonna be like, "Oh well, I don't agree with it, but I'll just listen." You know, I'm just having a meeting, you know. And North Korea, I mean, when's the last time you heard North Korea do anything good for their people or for anything? I mean, you know, they're in a totalitarianistic state, it seems. You know, I mean, of course, Russia's going to work with the worst of the worst. They got to talk to somebody. I mean,
I think they're working with each other like that because, from what I hear, the United States will like tell their allies, like if Sweden has really powerful superconductors. As a member of NATO, the United States will tell them, do not give those superconductors to China, even though it would advance not American, but humans into the future of technology. You know, and they do it all for control, power, and imperialist holding. That's why Biden went over to Vietnam, because Vietnam, there's people cashing in on like some of the mistakes. There's holes there that other countries can cash in on and get a little cash off of, and that's why Biden went over to Vietnam to ask him why they've been working with China and other places like that. You know? I haven't seen the summit. I don't know exactly why he was there. I believe
he was by himself, wasn't he?
No, wasn't the Prime Minister of India there as well?
I feel like that was
Was it Modi?
I thought that was a separate thing, was it not? Or was it the same one?
If it's not, then I won't speak on it.
I thought Biden wound up showing up by himself in terms of world
powers. Yeah.
Well, in any case, you know, we can see there, like we can see. I'm glad that we have an understanding on what's going on there. It's American imperialism, and it's other people making plays as they are. China's going to do what's best for China, and Russia is going to try to sustain. They don't want another USSR collapse. You know, they try to frame these guys as communists, these bad guys, and this and that. Vladimir Putin is not a communist. This guy was, I swear, wasn't he like pro-capitalist after the collapse?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know what he was. I just know that this dude was... he's been posturing since Obama, you know, and then he got Trump in office. And
the guy who will just openly make threats, go back and forth with Kim Jong-un on Twitter, having a little beef there. We're talking nuclear war here, nuclear fallout, you know, destruction.
And we don't even, not to cut you off, but we don't even know the extent to which how much stuff Donald Trump has revealed to our allies or enemies. We don't even know.
Yeah, they caught him showing battle plans to Australian dignitaries for what, just to brag, or just like he could throw Mark Billy under the bus.
And if he's showing this to our allies, what is he showing? What was he showing to our enemies? That's what I want to know. I mean, what we keep finding out more and more dumb shit that Donald Trump was doing during his presidency. It just keeps going. It never stops.
He's still denying the election.
He told him. He told the woman that he was working with, secretary or whatever. He told her, "Don't speak about the boxes." He done told this woman to box up this and box up that, and when he called her, to ask her about it, he said, "Don't tell her." He told her, "Don't speak about the boxes. Don't mention them." It's like, man, what does it do, Hyde?
He says the perfect phone call.
What is he gonna do? Something?
I really don't understand what his thought process was in keeping these classified documents. Like, okay, let's think about this. Let's think on this ridiculous train for a second. So you realize you got to leave the White House. Okay, so you pack up all your stuff and go. So it happens to all of us, right? When you're moving, you put, you know, your shoes with your food, you know, stuff like that. But these is classified documents.
These were nuclear documents. They caught Biden with some documents. You know what he did? He gave them right back.
Right, and that's what you're supposed to do. Because, I mean, obviously when you're dealing with paper, obviously stuff gonna get mixed in, but when you find it, you just hand it over. You don't have this 6-month long postulating hunt like, oh, I ain't got nothing, no, I ain't got nothing, oh well, I got a little bit, okay, let's be honest. And then you find out you got a whole bathroom full. I mean, imagine going into the bathroom and seeing all that stuff. Like,
treating a resort like it's his own home, you know. And you know the reason why he got in so much trouble over it is because he made the consequence for it worse, because he was still going after Hillary with the whole lock her up thing, because I believe it was the email thing with her, and he'll keep bringing that up. I mean, that's
the most ironic thing I'd have never heard.
Right.
He announced way too early, you know. He he's like the first, I believe, president in at least 100 years or whatever it was to try to like run for a election after losing as it was, and he's still hawking the same BS that he was when he first went through. And on top of that, he's still keeping up the whole the election was rigged thing. Like, I don't know who he did the interview with. It might have been MSNBC, but he was pulling that crap. He was he's pulling a lot of the same BS. He's a rambling old man. He's just prattling on. He's so confident that he's coming to Michigan to talk to because they're having that strike there with the Jeep
UAW. Are you talking about?
Yeah, the UAW. He's going there to talk to the strike leaders, people who don't like him as it is, so they can try to like be on his side. And he's going to leave Ramaswamy. Who was that one lady? I don't even remember her name. DeSantis, Ramaswamy, and Asa Hutchinson, all these guys, so they can have another like boring, awful debate. Because he's so confident in his ability to win. He needs to go to those debates and try to like fix some of his rhetoric, or at least come up with some new ones, right?
See, I don't even think that he's confident. I think he just has to. If he doesn't win this election, he is going to go to jail for a long time. I mean, even with not even talking about the January 6th indictments. We're just talking about the documents case. He can go for 10 years. And if he's in jail for 10 years, I think he's 74, 75. That puts him at 85. If he makes it out, I mean, all he needs is one time, and that's it.
You think he's going to jail for real, or you think he's going to be stuck in Mar-a-Lago?
I think he'll give him a plea bargain.
I'm almost certain they will, and it won't go to trial, and he'll just have to pay it, and it's going to be what it is. But I mean,
you might pardon him like Nixon. Ramaswamy, you were saying, I'm the only candidate that will pardon. That's saying they're going to pardon Donald Trump if he gets convicted.
He put his own people in jeopardy every time he opened the stupid ass mouth.
But I mean, Donald Trump might be stupid enough to go to trial. Like he's been in how many cases? 3,000. I think they said 3,000 litigations. He might be stupid enough to go to trial because he's not working with his best team. He didn't had full team since all this stuff started.
Yeah, Giuliani's getting sued himself. Giuliani's got his own problems.
Exactly.
He owed money. He ain't paid his lawyer bills.
Well, that's thanks to that Save America. That's the only thing that's keeping them afloat.
Dude, just bilking the system, man.
He figured out what works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, credit to the crazy. I mean, he's been able to stay afloat only because of his fans and the people that are interested in that. So
and I'm not going to sit up here and be like Hillary and call them deplorables and stuff, man. But just imagine just how he thinks that he can. He's a con man. He thinks that he can convince anybody of anything. And that's what he's doing. He's trying to convince people. Mm-hmm. The election was stolen. They trying to railroad me. And they got all this evidence in front of him. His ego or his narcissism is so damn huge, man, that he really truly believes that he can convince people. Well, he has convinced people.
He's got a lot of Republican base.
That's crazy.
I think 30%. Yeah,
that is crazy to me. People, I mean, you don't believe your lying eyes, man. You know what I'm saying? You got the evidence right there in front of you, and people. I saw I forgot her name, Carol Swain. She's one of those black conservatives or whatever. I sat there and watched the video of her saying that the election was stolen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking at it, just thinking in my own mindset, but I'm like, this black woman actually sitting here. You know what I'm saying? Then the commentator asked, well, what other candidate are you thinking about? What other candidate are you thinking about? And she said, Vivek.
Ramaswamy.
Yeah. She said, well, I like him. If it's not Trump, I'll probably vote for him. And I'm like, man, how delusional can you be? You cannot be that damn delusional.
You sure can. I mean, if look,
that is crazy.
Again, the thing about any news source, any news media outlet, like we were saying before, these folks are getting paid to do all these things. It doesn't matter what they actually believe. It doesn't matter. I mean, these are actors, right? They're actors in the context of trying to convey a message that gets viewers to watch their shows, right? I mean, that's not to say that there's people that don't do real journalism. People do real journalism, right? But there are people out there that are just out there for the bag. I mean, that's
or like Hannity licking boots.
Yeah, exactly. Or what's that? Carlson before he got fired, talking about them 14 points like you was talking about before. Like these corporations over these news outlets have figured out what sells. Murder sells. Outlandish stuff sells, and that's what the main stories are going to be. They'll throw in a nice little happy story in there just for the people who need to hear that. But the majority of it is going to be murder and outlandish stuff. That's just how this capitalistic society is set up. You know,
they better learn from Fox News. They lose what, $2 billion?
Yeah, and that settlement. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, with the
Dominion voting system.
Oh, Dominion cleans them out, honestly, for what they were doing. I mean, you remember when Carlson was talking about how much he hated Trump and all this and that when he was talking to him, and then he had to go on there and kind of back up that, and now the company lost all that, and he lost his job. I mean, I'm glad to see that man struggling, making garbage on Twitter and all that. I'm just gonna say I'm glad. Look at him. You see him just squirming, doing interviews with Andrew Tate, having to do interviews with Donald Trump, a man he doesn't like. I mean, yeah, he can go screw, honestly.
Yeah, but he did one with Ice Cube.
Yeah, Ice Cube, because he's got a little bit of money now, he wants to start talking bootstrap policies and things like that. I hate that. I hate when somebody, a minority or a person of color, gets a little bit of money in their pocket and they think they're white now.
That was certainly a surprise with Ice Cube. That was a disappointment.
A man who made a song, who was one of the key figures in making an iconic American song, F the Police.
Mm-hmm. To go back and show himself this way, it's something else, man.
It just shows how pervasive capitalism is. But we found ourselves in the muck again. We're back in the United States. I wanted to talk about a little something interesting, something that I don't think a lot of people know about, and that's the Northern Ireland peace walls, right? Because back in and this is something that came up back in 1988 on Good Friday. They came to an agreement to try to stop the Northern Ireland War, and I believe this is when England had invaded Ireland. This was under I believe it was Thatcher, something like that. And there was a lot of bloodshed going back and forth. I believe at least 3,000 people were killed. The IRA, I believe, got to start from there. What ended up happening was that they threw up these walls, right, between at least 100 of them between Northern and Southern Ireland, and this is between like English Protestants, I believe, and Irish Catholics. And I bring it up because it reminds me so much of the United States. Even though I say we're trying to come away from it, it reminds me so much of them because it was a band-aid solution. Granted, there's no more violence. There's no more like nail bombs going off. And this was domestic fighting that was going on here. This wasn't like in a field or a desert or whatever it was here. This was people in alleyways and neighborhoods. People getting laid down. I bring it up to say they say this is one of the best forms of resolving an issue. Like it's historical that people draw on it for a lot of things, but I think for the most part, it's not. And if you ask somebody who lives there, it didn't really fulfill all the promises that it was meant to fulfill. It seems to me that Western society, be it over in England or be it here in the United States, they're content with putting a band-aid over an issue, and going back and reclining in their chair, because they don't really have to deal with it as it is,
I mean that's. Going back to my previous point, I mean, when the society is set up in a capitalistic mindset, you want to find the cheapest, quickest, fastest solution to make it so people stop hurting each other, right?
That's why Trump got elected. Wall. Easy solution. Wall.
Yeah, I mean, a wall is a wall. I mean, like I said, how you say it? It's harder to actually go in and make systemic changes for the better. But in the long run, that's what's needed to actually stop a lot of these things, right? Is that systemic change. But I mean, it costs too much.
It shouldn't have happened to begin with, honestly. I believe. Do you guys have any idea about the English-Irish War? I forgot the actual name for it, but it went on for a long time, and I think it happened after England had come back from a war they were having in the desert or something like that, and that's why they were wearing black, and they were called black and tans during the time. I believe it was kind of similar to a third Reformation, a Catholic Reformation, and they ended up splitting this country in half, right? They made the top half real safe and nice. You know, they was running water, all this stuff in that, and they tried to choke them out like the United States tried to do with the Viet Cong. You know, once you have like a safe place up in the north, you know, and then the rebels are relying on the citizenry of the South, because they are the citizens of the South, to like keep them funded and keep them fed. Well, they're going to get choked out eventually if everybody's going up to where it's safe at. But the fact of the matter is, you shouldn't have been there to begin with, you know? I mean, it was, I believe, in my opinion, I believe it was colonizing, wasn't it?
Well, they wanted to keep the empire together. You know what I'm saying? That goes all the way back to, what's his name? The character Mel Gibson played?
I forgot the guy's name actually, but I know what you're talking about. I think they wanted to stop these people from being able to like worship as they pleased, you know, because it's mostly between Protestants and Catholics as it was, you know. But the thing of it is if it's English Protestants, I think, you know, it's not like somehow a lot of English ended up in Northern Ireland as it was, you know. And I just wonder, how did they get there? You know, it's not as if they were like, they weren't there to begin with, or like they were just there as it was, or some of them might have been there as it was. I'm not from England. I don't have a full knowledge base on what was happening there, you know. But somewhere along the line, the IRA was created, you know, and why would they need an Irish Resistance Alliance, you know, if there's like, if they're just having a disagreement with their neighbors, you know, or was it that people were coming in, moving into their homes, stopping them, their freedom of religion and focus, you know, killing their 16 leaders, I believe, you know, and just forcing them to do the things that they want them to do.
I think that would be a great question to pose to our listeners as well. If you want to leave that answer in the comments, definitely give us your responses on that. But go ahead, Heater.
I'm starting to figure out what that character was. With that man played.
All I can remember is that phone call he had when he was throwing that tantrum at his ex-wife. A pack of us.
Oh man, I cannot. I think he was that character. I think he was Scottish anyway.
He was.
Yeah, that's just England trying to keep their empire together.
Well, just how they did Brexit, trying to hold on to a little bit of sovereignty and screwing themselves.
Mm-hmm. I mean, oh my God! Don't even get me started on Brexit. We talked about it last week, but oh my God! I mean, it's just a mess.
Does the UN have anything to say about that? Are they phone in on? Because I hear that Ireland got out pretty clean on Brexit.
I mean, they got out okay, but I mean, the UN got their own problems, man. They trying to deal with. They got this food crisis right now. According to the WFP.org, they're facing a global hunger crisis. So they in 2 years, pre-pandemic, the number of people that were facing or at risk of acute food insecurity has increased from 135 million in 53 countries to 345 million in 79 countries. So that's more than double in 2 years. Now, you know, there's various different reasons. People always like to go to COVID because, I mean, it did happen. It was a pandemic, for goodness sakes. But it's not just COVID. It's also due to conflict that's going on, you know, in Ukraine and the climate shocks that's happened. But interestingly enough, NPR stated that this was due to a funding shortage. They basically, the folks in charge of trying to turn the tide, when they interviewed them, they stated the funding has been cut in half. So they're trying to do the same job with funding cut by half. And they stated for every 1% that's cut from the funding, about 400,000 more people are forced into hunger. So my question for you all, why do you think the world is having such a hard time feeding everyone? You know, we live in America, if you couldn't tell already. You know, we're in the society where we waste so much food. Like, why do you think we as Americans and just the world is having such a hard time feeding people? Number one. Number two, do you think the USA is actually helping these efforts to feed these people, or do you think they're hurting it or not doing anything at all?
I'll be honest, I don't think that the UN is really much of an organization of anything at all. I don't think they do anything except, meet in that big room because it looks cool, you know. I think it's the way it is because so many world powers are just stealing from third world countries and keeping them in the state that they are. You know, you look at the banana wars down in South America between the United States and the things they did down there. You know, putting vile or just evil here like the Contras in power and things like that. You look at Niger in France, putting a puppet dictator in there, and when they put him out, they cut off their water. You know, look at the state of Libya after their civil war when they had people that they had like lunatic cannibal generals going around doing whatever it was, and the UN is just there to try to hold things in place. You know, I think the UN. I think we're asking this organization, the fact that they have any money at all surprises me. I mean, the United States has the Invasion of the Hague Act, you know, so in case any of our leaders commit any world crimes, we'll invade the Hague, a prison, I believe, in Sweden or whatever it was, and take them back out. You know, there's no punishment for any of these things. These guys are supposed to be like the world police, a gathering of people that came together after World War II, but there's nothing there for them to do. You know, they don't actually exist. They don't actually have any real power.
Okay, Heater, what'd you think?
Yeah, you think about the African countries that they are supposed to be stationed in. You know, you look at how many of these African countries have like areas where they can plant food and stuff like that, and grow food and produce and all that stuff. But instead, they got fracking going on, oil refineries, digging up mines,
tellurium mines.
Stuff. I mean, you could look at Brazil the same way. You know. Well, all the different places where where food is grown and supplied or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They mining and doing fracking and that kind of stuff. I think that a lot of food is being stolen. You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be going towards people that starving. I think they selling it on the black market or some some stuff.
Well, they're just taking it and sending it back to their own countries. You know, they got it growing there, and then they're sending it back to their home, and then people that are getting it, the United States wastes 2/3 of what they produce. You know, I think it's being made and thrown away, and it's not as if it's like the best stuff you're getting. It's got microplastics and all this and that in it. You know, it's made from. It's like instead of diamond mines, it's banana farms. You know, it's cornfields. It's
We got wars happening, all over the place. Watch and see what happens to Ukraine.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be a whole lot of starvation going on in there.
Well, I mean, just going to the piece about the state of American food in general. Like, I went on a trip recently to Canada. And I went to the Walmart. I promise this is relevant. I went to the Walmart, bought I think it was a bag of chips. Right. Looked at the ingredients on this bag of chips. It had 3 ingredients: potatoes, salt, and then the oil. You get the same bag of chips in America. You got a laundry list of things: preservatives, monosodium, all this other stuff. Like, I mean, America is specifically trying to fund their medical system through having people get sick from their food. And it would make sense to me that the United States isn't helping. They're not helping their own people. Of course, they're not going to help the UN. I mean, I mean, I'm almost certain, because, I mean, on top of that, you look at where the funding goes for the people that need it, for like TANF, temporary assistance for needy families, right? Most of that funding doesn't go where it should go anyway. I mean, when like, I think there's only like a few states who had more than half of their funding going to specifically help families that need this money. So I mean, of course, the United States aren't going to be helping the UN's efforts across the world. No, not even close.
Yeah, especially if it means the bubble has to stop getting bigger. You know, the bubble always has to get bigger. I don't know if it's ever, when it pops, it's going to be really bad for us. You know, I don't think that it's going to be like, we're going to be completely gone and out. You know, we're going to be like Italy, and people are going to be taking away our, come and take Puerto Rico from us, or anything like that. But I think it is going to be really, really bad for a lot of people, especially with global warming pushing more people towards the middle of the country and everything like that. Housing, as hard as it is to get now, You know, what happens when the bubble pops? There won't be. There'll be another Great Depression. You know, people will be looking for a war to try to restart the economy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that usually the case? Start a war.
That's what we did after World War II. I mean, we did for World War II. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how much money Desert Storm and Iraqi Freedom and all those other. I don't know how much money all that made. You know, but.
I mean, it's all down to the almighty dollar, right? That's the reason why any of this happens, you know.
Well, you know, for it's going to start in Africa, the famine and all that stuff, and spread out.
Yeah, and as the world keeps getting bigger, I mean, you're going to see more and more famine come about. I think they project if we continue to have children. We as the world, by the way, not America specifically, because America I think is stagnant. But if we as a world continue at the same birth rate that we have been, we'll be at 10 million. I think it won't take long at all. So I mean, we're barely struggling to maintain at, I think it's 7.7 billion right now. Yeah. Imagine once we get to 10 billion. Like it's gonna be a problem.
The world keeps heating up. Yeah, the global warming, it is gonna be real bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, people, we've been talking for a good minute now. We're gonna take a little break, let you guys do whatever you guys have to do, and then we'll be right back. All right, welcome back from the break, people. We got a couple of movies we wanted to tell you guys about. Fellas, I told you guys about a horror film, a little indie film that was created in the Source engine by the name of Immensis Blue. Now, it's a pretty complex film as it is. You know, a lot of people are calling it a masterpiece. You know, it is an indie film and is created with cartoon characters, but it has a lot of depth in it. I just wanted to ask you guys how you felt about it. You know, I'll jump in and explain things as it is, whatever questions you might have. You know, whenever you guys are seeing, but tell me some things that might have stood out to you or things you might have questions about.
I mean, me watching it just off the jump, it reminds me of how I felt after watching Inception for the first time. I was like, I need to watch this about 4-5 times to fully grasp what's going on here. I mean, it was definitely a masterpiece based on what I could see. I mean, it definitely captured the horror theme well, you know, and it conveyed it with video game characters. You know, that's the craziest thing about it to me. You know, excellently well done.
We did it with an engine, I believe, from 2008.
Which is crazy to me. Heater, what were your thoughts?
I was amazed by the graphics, the details, all of that. You know, I'm like, wow, this is a very detailed. I mean, I think it was a masterpiece, to be honest with you. I'm not really, you know, I'm not really into, you know, that kind of thing, but I actually enjoyed it. You know, I kept going back to parts because I know I wanted to come up with some questions, but. You know, it was enjoyable. You put it that way.
So, Cam, for the folks at home that haven't seen this indie masterpiece, why don't you lay it out for them and tell them what it's about?
Basically, it follows, I don't know how many characters in it, but it follows these mercenaries that work for two organizations called like Builders League, and it's basically red versus blue, right? These mercenaries who work for these two companies out in the desert. And part of their job is that they have to go out and fight each other all the time. You know, this is a part of the gameplay loop. You know, when you die, you respawn in the game and come back. And it usually only takes 20 seconds for them to come back. But in reality, for the mercenaries, when they die and they go back, not only is their body like still there and disposed of, this machine completely recreates their bodies, and they spend what feels like to them an eternity in the afterlife before they come back in. So on top of that, when they do pass away, and I'm not like giving like the most detailed explanation of this, but when they do pass away, they end up losing a little bit more of their mind and body each time. So they end up like becoming a little bit more of their worst selves. And these are already mercenaries as it was. But at the beginning of the film, there's a character called the Scout, a young man who's with his doctor, and he goes in there to talk to him. And he goes in there and speaks to him because when he came back through the machine one time when he was on a job, it ended up taking a lot of his IQ away and making a lot of his organs shut down and fail. You know, that's why he has a scar on the side of his head, and that's why he needs help standing up, if you guys have noticed that. That's why he wants to sue the company as well, because the machine doesn't work like how it's supposed to. I don't know who like the shadowy figure, the plague doctor is. I think it might be a second personality to the medic as he is, because you see him when he looks into the mirror, like that other personality that grabs him. That's like that's like the worst part, the degrading part of himself. You know, the badness that is coming through as he comes through the machine more and more now. And granted, he's retired at this point, but you can see the damage, and so much so that at this point he's taking Valium, right? So basically, all these guys get lured to the place where this all started out at, right? The soldier and the spy and everyone that was there. They get lured back to the slaughterhouse, and when they get there, they run into like a huge golem kind of guy, right? You guys remember him? Mm-hmm. The reason that he was like that is because when he went through the machine the second time, it messed him up more, you know? The scout who gets captured, right? And he gets tortured and killed by those two guys, right? When he dies, you see him as the really elongated, really messed up monster, the spider monster, right? He went back through the machine again, and it messed his mind and his body up so much that he was a monstrosity now. When the medic passes away, when he gets shot in the chest by that guy, he gets up and he's really violent, right? You see the way he kills the guy, right? Mm-hmm. It's because it's brought out a certain aspect or element within him, you know. It's bringing out the worst in them. You see at the beginning when they're like doing the trials, when Helix is doing their trials on the guy. And they say, he says it's an eternity in there. He says his eyes hurt, right? And then finally it cuts out because like this wall of blood comes through when he finally comes through, because it was just done incorrectly. It's all because this machine has been cheating death, you know, and it ends up creating like just this worse and worse experiments of people. The thing of it is like there's only 9 of these guys because they tested on so many human beings that they could only find these ones that could survive it, you know. Was there anything like more specifically in particular you had questions about, like some things you might have saw? Because I know Catabasis was very complex.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna hold you up. I didn't understand Catabasis at all.
Well, Catabasis refers to I believe a series of Grecian stories where the main character is descending into hell. It basically means descent into hell, right? Okay. So when Jules Archibald, the guy who you see, the heavyset guy, he's in the chair, you know, or I believe he's healed, and then the soldier has to run away from the golem that's after him, one of the recreated soldiers. He goes down into this pit, and there's bodies everywhere. He sees legs and everything. Those are all his bodies. He's falling down into hell, and he's seeing how they used him the most through all the experiments to like try to perfect it. And as he's walking through it, the carriers come and it picks him up, you know, because they're still just moving all of these corpses. I think it's called Descent into Hell because it's him realizing what was done to him, you know, because you see him have a hallucination midway through the film, you know, because he's not taking the Valium, you know, he's not really fully aware of everything that's going on around him. He's just like a soldier.
So when he fell down into that looked like him, all those bodies was him.
Yes, those are his corpses, and he realizes like the people he worked for, the guy that he was going to save, did that to him.
Can you imagine, like, in an alternate reality where this is possible, like falling into a room with all your dead bodies? Can you imagine how psychologically damaging that would be?
Yes, a sea of the dead. I think this film calls reference to a lot of other really great films, but I think there's a part of a film, like, you know, he's crawling around the wall. I don't know if it was a part of Dante's Inferno or if it was like the house that Jack built, I believe it was, and like this serial killer ends up going to hell, and he's got like he can either get around the wall and crawl around to get to the other side of the wall to find salvation and be in heaven, or he can like fall down into the bottom layers of hell and suffer even more. Well, he as we see at the soldier, he's gonna jump across to the side, but then the monster grabs him and he gets over there, right? But when he gets there, he falls back down into hell, you know. And when he's down there, he can hear that monstrosity, you know, the old scout that turned into that monster screeching and yelling for him, and he has to run up to the surface, right? The whole thing is really complex. I recommend looking at like a good breakdown video for it, because when he comes up through the top, through that one sewer level, he said, I don't recall it. Does he like come out onto the is he? You see, the thing is you don't know when they're hallucinating or not, because they're developing schizophrenia from using the machine. So when he comes up and he's looking at himself in the car, you don't know if he's looking back into time or if he's just hallucinating or what's happening. Or it could be that the machine is actually messing with the space-time continuum, snatching men out of death like the way it does. So they take you there. They take you back up to like where the tower is falling out. They show you the play deck. There's a lot of things that aren't like given to you. I think that gives to the horror element of it, that you have to like the human mind can come up with worse things than what's actually there. The monster that comes after him eventually survives and tries to get him, but it ends up getting crushed. His teammate that he was with, he feels really guilty about him leaving him behind, and he ends up getting burned. And then when he sees him, his premonition comes true. So there's a lot of things in it that you don't like. Like, was that real? Was that reality? Was it him like hallucinating? Was it time being messed up? Because we can already see that like God is being cheated, bringing men back to life. You don't actually know what's going on, but you do understand that there's like something really bad, that this corporation has been using these men, committing a human experimentation for their own ends. And that's why you see him at the end when they want them to read the cue card and he has a grenade. He's ready to like give it all up. I don't want to spoil it. Of course, I want people to go watch it, but it's in my opinion, a very great psychological thriller. It's a very decent film,
So he was a mercenary, right?
Yeah.
So all those bodies, when he fell in that hole with all those bodies, were those symbolic deaths that he was experiencing, that he witnessed, or were the actual deaths that he experienced going through the machine and stuff like that?
Those are deaths that he experienced going through the machine and also doing work for the company that he works for. Do you remember when they open the truck up and all those corpses fall into the water in the intro?
Yeah.
Those are the bodies of the dead after they do the work. Even though they've gone back through the machine, they don't even realize that those bodies got left behind, Wow. You see when the one Australian fella, he looks regular when he's firing at them on the stairs to begin with, right? And then when they go after him a little later, he goes after them a little later, his face and everything is messed up more and more throughout the film. You hear them say things like it's longer than you think. I think that gives reference to, I don't remember which film it was. Oh, jeez. I don't remember what film it was exactly. Or it wasn't a film. I don't remember. Like, it was a short story. I don't remember who it was by. It might have been Dean Koontz. I don't know. But it was about humans discovering teleportation. It was a sci-fi horror thing. And basically the way that they do it is they have to go under like amnestic and be asleep to do it. Otherwise there'll be otherworldly consequences they don't know about. So a part of the story, this kid, while he and his parents are getting teleported across the country or whatever it is, he doesn't breathe in the gas. He holds his breath because he wants to see what's on the other side, right? And when he holds his breath, his parents wake up on the other side. He's like a feral, white-haired ghoul, and he's scratching and clawing his dad and screaming and saying, "It's longer than you think, Dad. It's longer than you think." And I think that's like another one of their really great references. And they make reference to a lot of other great horror films. I think they had like They Live reference in it. They had a lot of really good stuff in it. I really recommend watching the film. Honestly, I don't really want to spoil any more into it. I will get the background like that, like longer than you think, things you see like that, looking into worlds that you're not supposed to, and the consequences that come of it. How carrying out those actions can, like, I think the way that they bring you into the perspective of the character, and you feel like the confusion that they might feel, like. Or the shattering of reality when you have that kind of mental illness, especially for one who isn't taking the Valium, because you see the guys that are taking the Valium, even though he's taking it, he still sees somebody outside of his window, right?
Right.
Or the guys who have been through the machine too many times now, and they're heinous killers, they're torturers, they're murderers, they're lunatics, Or you see a guy who's gone through and he barely has his humanity. That one guy had one arm and he was still alive, is because he's been tested on so much by this point that he was barely a human at all. And as the film goes through, I won't spoil it. I really I think like the end will give a good explanation.
You can keep on going because you making it make sense to me now, man.
I think,
but I understand you are too, man. I'm just saying, because I was looking at certain person. I'm like, man, okay, they lost me. You know what I'm saying?
I think the best films are the ones that like tell you without having to tell you. Like it'll show you a thing. We're looking at. You remember when he pulls the gun? When he takes at the beginning, when he takes the gun out and he's holding it there, and it's good suspense and it's good tension, and then a car comes by. Well. I won't spoil. I want our viewers to enjoy it because it's being called a masterpiece, and people should be able to enjoy it for themselves. But in my opinion, I recommend it because despite the limitations of the technology they have, they were able to put together a very, very good story. You know, they got into a bit of a God aspect of it. You know, they bended reality, time, space, life itself, humanity as it is. You know, the mind of people. You know, I think my favorite scene, which really shows they show us what's happening to them, but without like telling us what's happening, is when the medic is looking into the mirror. And he grabs himself, you know, and slams his head into the glass. And you don't know if that, like, did something actually grab him, or was that him? You know, who is this within himself that he's actually battling? Yeah, because you have to be reminded these are mercenaries. You know, the things that they've done.
So, make the guy in the wheelchair, make that make sense to me.
Guy in the wheelchair. I'm trying to remember who was
Because remember they were at the funeral and they was arguing with each other.
Oh yeah, the man. Those are the two men who made them do everything. That's why he had the grenade there. That's why he wanted to end it all, because he realized what those men had done to him.
So it wasn't the guy whose funeral they were at. He was the guy whose funeral was. He was working for both of those guys.
Yeah, he was just there because you remember you saw him in the war room when he goes in there and he's hearing the phone call between them. And he's saying, "I've got a way for you to not have to keep paying for mercenaries." He was just like an arms dealer who ended up doing this, and those guys went along with it, you know, and they didn't really care about the consequences that came from it. They understood the consequences. They understood that like the human mind and body wouldn't be able to sustain the damage that was being done to them. But they also didn't want to have to keep paying for new mercenaries, you know. So they ended up dealing with the consequences of their actions. No, I know. I said that like the medic in the mirror was my favorite part, but I think Catabasis was probably my favorite part of it. Not only because of the reference to Grecian mythology, but it also brought it back for a modern film with the house that Jack built, you know, about the serial killer. The fact that he that he does like try to get across to heaven, you know, and then he falls down into the deeper layer of hell, and he hears the monster screaming as a reflection of what he has become and what they've done to him, is very like good character development, because as he starts out, he's calling him Mr. Archibald, he's a loyal soldier and all that, but by the end of it, he's lost the use of his legs, you know, and you see he's not the same person that he was. Even, oh, I won't spoil that part, but you as it goes along, you see like what this experimentation has done to these men. But Ace, you had a pretty I don't know how to describe you. You had a pretty good selection yourself, didn't you?
Yes, I did. So I selected Black Mirror, specifically season 3 episode 1, Nosedive. So I am gonna give spoilers. It's been out for 7 years now. If you don't want spoilers, go ahead and watch it on Netflix and then come back. But essentially, just to give a little background about Black Mirror in general, Black Mirror is basically this Netflix show. It's similar in concept to The Twilight Zone. Often features technology within past or present, and shows how we as humans have manipulated it for good and evil. This episode in particular is set in a universe where everyone rates each other from 0 to 5, or from 1 to 5, and your average rating determines your way of living. The main character in the show has a decent score, which 4.2 ain't bad, but can't afford to move into her dream living arrangement. It's my understanding that it seems like they actually still use money, but your rating can have an influence on whether you can get into certain areas, because she's told if she can get her score to a 4.5 or above, she can get like a 20% discount, which could allow her to move into the location. For based on my interpretation, or the way that I see it, for the most part, while everyone can technically rate people between 1 and 5 stars, most people only do a 1 or a 5. And the higher your score is, obviously, the more your rating matters. Now, the crazy part of this is that China has implemented a system very similar to this, called the social credit system. I mean, it's similar to Black Mirror. People are judged using a score. Those with higher scores get preferential treatment, more access to travel, this and that, while the lower people don't. Those at the bottom can be even locked out of society, banned from travel, or barred from getting credit, getting jobs. And they're accomplishing this by increasing surveillance. I mean, China's always been a surveillistic state or country, but I mean, even more so now. With this facial recognition, body scanning, geo-tracking, that kind of thing. It seems like arguably the logical next step based on what that track is. So, my question for you both have seen Black Mirror, that episode. So, when I was watching the show, I had this immediate click to think that this was just like credit scores in real life. In the United States. Not to say that credit scores necessarily control everything, but I mean, if you want a good house, if you want access to, buy a good car, have a low interest rate, all that good stuff, you have to have a good credit score. If you don't, you're just not getting access to that part of, that part of society. So, I mean, would you say it's similar? The system is similar to the credit score here in the United States, and do you think the system's classist?
Oh yeah, I think discrimination in the United States is always class based. Do you want to say?
What?
I think discrimination in the United States is always class based. In the world at large, just like how we were talking about with NATO. I think the way that not NATO, but the UN, the way that some people have their water and food taken and others aren't. I think immediately when I was watching, I thought it was just like the Chinese social credit score. I think humans have a tendency to break things down in like categories or ways for us to understand things better. But for the most part, when I watch Black Mirror, and I think this goes for most of the writing of the show in general, a lot of people think the future is going to be like cyber stuff. We're going to have bionic arms, like 2077, like the video game. But I think that Black Mirror really shows the end step of human society, before the singularity takes us. It shows I don't want to say the worst of ourselves, but it really shows what we're going to end up being if we keep going along in the way that we are. We're going to have, it's going to be to a point where your life is dictated by the numbers, where you're not really fully aware of the reality that you're living in. People can hack you and make you go on a bank robbery, because of the things that you've done online, because so much of you is online, or you commit a crime and the punishment is so heinous and so capital that you had to relive being hunted through a city as an amusement.
That's another crazy episode, I tell you.
I think the way that human life loses its value every year here is just showing us how much closer we are getting to the Black Mirror as a reality. Because people can say it's sci-fi and things like that, but I think a lot of the inspiration they have, and it just comes directly from reality. You don't have to look too far or make anything up when there's already that kind of score in the countries that it's in. Oh,
absolutely. I mean, the fact of the matter is Black Mirror isn't outlandish, right? They try to present it in this outlandish way to make you captivated by what's going on. But when you really break down and look at what the tech or materials they're presenting is, it's not that far off. I mean, there's so many examples in Black Mirror of things that you're like, oh yeah, I've heard something similar to this. Oh, that's probably a step below or whatever. You know what I mean? So, Charlie Brooker literally talks, the creator of Black Mirror literally talks about, where he gets his inspirations from. And a lot of times it's, obviously from real life, but things that are just that one step removed from real life, that one step away from where we're at.
Like the one AI episode with the pop star.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Cause or the Waldo moment, right? With the animated character running for president. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I can't remember that. I can't remember.
Yeah, these are to a layperson, a cartoon character running for president. That sounds like a hilarious joke, but if a pop star can do it, if a guy known for saying you're fired can do it, is it really that far off? Are we really saying that it's impossible to do?
I mean, people watch VTubers, people playing characters on the internet that aren't actually them, just a voice piloting a disembodied anime figure.
I said that's what I got from it. I I'm thinking about popularity on characters that people play on the internet. Like on YouTube and TikTok and stuff like that. That's what I was thinking about. How do you get their attention where they're actually paying attention to you and appreciate you to the point where you get acknowledged, so you get points for it.
And the fact that they were willing to do anything to hold on to that, you can see that with our celebrities. You can see it on the internet.
Exactly.
Can you explain the ending to me? Did she do that just so she could?
Okay, so again, this is that spoiler section. But so what ends up happening is the main character has this spiral almost. So she starts where she was gonna. I think she was gonna go. She was planning on going to her friend's. Wedding, and that's the major event that's going to boost her from a 4.2 to a 4.5. The friend asks her, this is a friend from a long time ago, really doesn't talk to her unless she needs something, which I mean we can all relate to, getting talked to by a friend you haven't heard from in years and they want some money from you, but I'll leave that one alone. So the main character, goes or tries to go to this wedding, but when she catches a cab, she runs into somebody who's higher rate. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned it prior to, but the higher your score is, the more your rating matters. So if you're a 4.8 in this case, rating somebody lower than you, your rating matters more than somebody who's a 4.2 or a 3 point whatever. So the reason this matters is she runs into this lady and spills her coffee on herself. She rates her a 1 star. That sends her down. Then she gets into a cab. The cab person rates her lower. Rates her a 1 star. To the point where when she gets to the airport, she doesn't have a high enough score to take a plane. Right? So then the plane... so then she has to try to rent a car to get this massive boost of points again, if she can actually make it to this event. Well, then the car rental place, she gets mad with them. They rate her lower, and she can only now afford to get one of the worst model fleets of cars. Then she finally gets into the car and starts driving. She tells the friend, "Oh, I'm still on the way. I'm going to make it." Yada yada. And the friend's upset because she didn't make it when she was supposed to. This, that, and the third. Well, eventually she breaks down, this and that, and she's trying to hitch a ride to try to get there. She meets this truck driver. Truck driver is like a 1.6, something like that, less than 2 at the very least. And she's looking at her like she's a creep, like, I don't know, because I mean, you have access to everybody else's rating, right? You can see it. You can see like what previous people rated her. And the truck driver doesn't care at this point. Truck driver has decided that she is not going to be a part of the system. Whatever happens, whatever. And does actually a Matrix reference to the red pill, blue pill, which is the red thermostat has coffee, and the blue has coffee, the red has whiskey. And then so then they talk, instills in her some ideas. So then she finally drops her off on the side of the road.
She was going in another direction, but she dropped her off in the road that she was supposed to travel.
Right. So then she had to hitchhike with this group that had another TV show that was weird and all wacky and all this. And finally she stands up for herself and she's like, yeah, no, this is dumb. What your show is dumb. Which, I mean, it's not about the show itself. It's about the fact that she's being woken up and realizing that this system isn't benefiting her, this and that. So then, because of all these lower ratings she finally gets to the place, and she doesn't have a high enough score to even get into the main entrance. So now she has to go the back way, climb through the woods, and then you see her come into break into the wedding, and then she does her speech, and really it's just her emotionally draining herself, in my opinion, like draining all of the emotion she has towards not being able to have a high rating, knowing that she won't be able to get back to where she was, even if she does great here, dealing with the trauma that, her quote unquote friend slept with, her boyfriend when they were younger, like just processing all of that. And basically it's a mental breakdown is what happened. You know, and she gets dragged off by the security, she gets thrown in jail, yada yada yada. And she finally is now, you know, it's the most awoken she's ever been. You know, so now she's looking at the person across from her and looking at the dirt or the dust that's falling from the rafters, showing that she's actually paying attention to the little insignificant details that she never used to. You know, she can finally scream, and, you know, you can't rate anybody in jail. They don't have access to that technology. You don't have access to that technology. It's just, you know, just you. And then that's why they end up screaming at each other, and they both realize, like, yeah, none of this stuff matters. So,
you know what? I think it reminds me of a movie I watched recently where, like, not recently, but a little while ago, where, like, everybody's search history had got exposed, you know. I think it was called Assassination Nation, you know, and I think it's like, it talks about how, like the scrutiny that we hold each other to, despite, like, if people could see what everybody else is looking at, if people could hear each other's thoughts, then people would be going to jail, you know.
Oh yeah,
people, it's hypocritical to judge another human being, another animal, based on, like, your position or how you posture yourself, especially, like, when we don't know how you actually are, what you're doing in your house, or what you actually believe. I think it, like, kind of goes a little bit into cancel culture, or, like, shaming, you know, like how Monica Lewinsky, what was she, like a college student? She got seduced by the president of the United States. He throws her under the bus. Sweet Bill gets away with it, playing the saxophone and going on like he does. And this girl, for the rest of her life, has her life ruined, you know, and is dragged and made a mockery of. You know, I think it just reflects, like, how we're so quick to judge others, that even though we all have skeletons in our closets, you know, there are no clean hands.
No, I mean, everyone has had those thoughts of, like, oh, I just want to kill this mother, you know, like, everybody's had that thought at some point in their lives. It's just the difference maker is, where are you at in your life? Are you willing to act on those things, or do you have enough common sense to say, no, this is just a dumb thought, and let it go?
Well, what I saw was she went out of her way. She had that big to do with her brother, who was trying to tell her to be herself. Mm-hmm. She went through all that, everything you described. You know, she just wanted to be part of something that she wasn't included in the first place. Mm-hmm. Because they said, you know, your numbers are not high enough or whatever. Oh, her friend assumed that her numbers were at 4.2.
Yep.
That's just enough to get in, right? Mm-hmm. So she went through all those struggles, going through the back way, muddied up, I mean, everything, drugged through the dirt and all that. Mm-hmm. Get there, still want to make the speech, trying to get attention when everybody's still looking at her the same way, whatever. So what did she do? She brought out her dirty laundry. Mm-hmm. You know, like, hey, you put on this facade, you put up this picture that you this, but this is who you really are. You know, and she had to expose herself to be able to see what was directly in front of her.
Oh yeah, I mean, and another aspect of the show that's not explicitly stated is the people that are 4.5 and above. The reason that 4.5 number keeps coming up, the people that are 4.5 and above all stay in their same bubble. They don't interact really with people who are under 4.5. Mm-hmm. They all stay in their same bubbles. They keep rating each other 5 stars to keep going higher and higher and higher, closer to 5. The people who are under that are trying to pierce into that sector, into that bubble, and the only way, like, they even talk about it in the little bank segment. You know, talk about trying to change your friends to more people who are 4.5s and above, and it's like, oh yeah, let me just go ahead and do that right now. Yeah, like that's not realistic, you know. But I mean, it was one of the most powerful Black Mirror episodes to me, as someone who has attempted to, you know, run a YouTube channel, you know, as someone who's experienced that thought process of, well, do I change my content to appease fans? Do I, you know, all those things you go through as a content creator, you know. It just hit home. I was just like, wow.
I mean, not just that, you think about yourself as a minority and the glass ceilings you might run into,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how hard you might try to do things, no matter how much you might pretend like she does, it's just you can do her speech and all this and that, they're still going to look at you a certain way. There's still going to be like limitations to you getting there. There's still going to be, it's like crabs in a bucket, people are going to pull you down if they can. And if you get like, say you you're messing around with the president, Bill's not going to get thrown under the bus for it, but you're going to get punished, It shows that that more often than not, the value that we ascribe to human beings are like what they can give back to us, or what like we think is already ordained or supposed to be given to them, Because even as she was up there giving the speech, she was still just a 4.2 to them. Granted, she might have been able to join the circle after that, but I think, once she was when she was there and she realized and she saw that they were looking back at her, she saw the way that like all these people had treated her at that point. She saw that really dumb show, and the fact that she probably had to like kiss ass to hold on to that, to hold on to a little bit of number, and the fact that she had to trudge through the woods, in order to get to this speech. It shows that like none of what she was going for was actually worth what she had given up, to achieve it.
Mm-hmm. She degraded herself to only realize that she had receipts, right?
And she had them already. That everyone's hands were dirty,
Mm-hmm. But the brilliant part about the episode is she just gets dragged off, and then you don't know what happens to the wedding after that. But it really doesn't matter. Like that's the big thing I got from it. Yeah, you may do all these efforts to try to get ahead, do all this and that, but underpinning all of that has to be people who are gonna actually care about you, actually support you, actually give you those positive reinforcements and that kind of thing. Like none of the fake BS matters.
Yeah, just being called up by somebody who only needs you who only calls you when they need something from you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it took me a minute to really get into it because I was one of those people who didn't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? I didn't care if anybody liked me or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe that was dysfunctional. I don't know.
No, I agree. I think a life lived by the standards of others is a life wasted in general, When
Absolutely.
you see it in her, it's reflected in her own life, But you know what? In any case, actually, before we go, I want to remind you those movies. The movie was Immensus Blue. You can watch that on YouTube, and the selection from Ace was Black Mirror, Season 3, Episode 1, titled Nosedive. If you want to watch that, it's on Netflix. But for the most part, we've been going on for quite a while now. We had a little break, but I think we'll leave the episode as it is, and we welcome you guys to speak on however you feel in the comment.
Yeah, and make sure if you're interested, if you have any questions for us or any stories you'd like to share from your experience, definitely go ahead and leave those in the comment section. Or if you, like I say, if you have any questions or just want to shoot the breeze, feel free to give us those comments. We like comments. We like to interact with our fans. So,
all right, this has been 36 Crucible, y'all. Thank you for joining us.